We're back with the waitingfornextyear.com podcast. Andrew is still on the line, and now we're talking about Deshone Kizer. I guess we're talking about Cleveland Browns quarterbacks in general. Did you happen to did they show the Cleveland Browns preseason game in Columbus this year?
So this is kind of a funny story. They did, but I thought that they didn't because apparently they cut to the broadcast like a minute late, and I went to it like right at the start, and it was on our local CBS. So I put it on to CBS, and the game wasn't on, and I was like, "Oh, that sucks! It's not on here." And then it was only like the next day, and talking to my friends, they told me that it was on, but they switched to it like a minute or two late or something. So, so I actually missed it, but I did catch the highlights and everything afterwards.
So now we've got Brock Osweiler started that game. Yep. I would say he didn't look particularly great.
No.
Cody Kessler didn't look particularly good.
Nope.
And then maybe the worst thing that ever could have possibly happened, Deshone Kizer schools some future grocery bagger third-teamers in the fourth quarter of the first preseason game. Again, vanilla defense doesn't do justice to what he was probably facing.
Yeah, for sure.
And now he's being anointed by Cleveland Browns fans on Twitter.
It's a funny thing because it's not nothing. Like, I want to be clear about that. It's not nothing. Like, we've seen plenty of Browns draft picks go into preseason games against bad defenders and vanilla defenses and still not look all that great. Just look pretty pedestrian. It was good that he looked good. Like, he was, he can only face the defense that he was facing. That's all he had to work with. He can't prove anything more, but he proved that he doesn't suck against that. So, okay, that's a positive. But
yeah, he proved that he actually has an arm that can go a certain distance.
Yep. But he did not prove that he can start in the NFL right now. We just need to slow down on that and be clear. That did not – maybe he could be ready week one to start in the NFL. That could be. But this game does not prove that. I think that in hindsight, it almost seems predictable. Like, you just feel like, of course, this is what was going to happen. Like, it's just the ultimate Browns thing to have happen, to find ourselves in this situation once again. It's like, what a luxury it must be to just go through preseason. You know who your quarterback is, and like, it's just your guy. Like, I'm so jealous of that. Like, I'm so ready for that to someday be the Browns situation.
But here's the real question. What would Cody Kessler have done in that same spot in the late third and fourth quarter against that defense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously we can't know, but
if you had to guess.
I think Cody Kessler would have done fine against them. I do.
And I think Brock Osweiler would have been slinging the ball all over the field against that awful,
for sure.
I think fourth quarter, first preseason game defense.
Especially for Brock Osweiler, who has a lot more experience going up against top tier NFL starting talent. I think it would have felt really easy to him. So yeah, that's why there's just not a whole lot you can learn out of that, other than the fact that, like I said, it's not nothing. I think there are some guys who have struggled in the past in those situations. It was good that he wasn't terrible against that. But going forward, we still need to see a lot from him before we can say he's ready to start for the Browns week one of this season as a rookie.
Yes, and I think that it's still in a lot. So now in training camp today, we're finding out Kizer is splitting first team reps with Osweiler. And that's maybe fine too. It's good to kind of push him up the ranks. We know that if anybody on this quarterback unit has any future with the Browns, it's only Kizer. It's not Osweiler. It's not Kessler. Are you ready to say that with Kessler? Because there was some chatter amongst Browns fans before training camp started that maybe Cody Kessler could make the leap. Are you giving up on the idea that Cody Kessler could have any kind of leap that he could make this year?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not particularly interested in betting on Cody Kessler at all. Fair or not, I feel like we saw enough last year to know that he's not going to be career starting NFL quarterback. He might be an all right backup to have, but he's just not the guy that I want to invest in whatsoever in the Browns' future. I definitely agree. Kizer is the only guy I have any interest in, putting in that conversation and thinking about what's best for him long term for the Browns. Like, I don't care about what's best for Brock Osweiler or Cody Kessler long time for the Browns. Just Kizer.
And so with that said, like, how much do you protect him in your mind? And how much do you think he needs to be protected and kept from starting too early?
Yeah, I was talking about this with one of my friends the other day, and I said, right now my gut feeling is I don't want Kizer anywhere near the field this year. I just feel like I don't, with the lack of wide receivers, the lack of real threats on offense. Like, I just don't want any negativity in his head. I just would like him to just learn the offense inside out, get as many reps in practice as he can, and have him ready to go for next year. But that got us to talking then about other quarterbacks, in the past, and whether you should start them their rookie year or not. And like, it's funny, like, nobody has more confirmation bias on hardly any other topic than this one. It's like, because there's so many cases that you can have on both sides, right? Like, so many guys who were held back and didn't start right away who ended up, having great careers. But there's also a lot of guys who started day one and ended up having pretty darn good careers. And it's one of those things you can never know what would have happened in the other case. Like,
I agree with you. There's no magic bullet for this kind of a thing, and there's a scenario where Deshone Kizer can start from day one, and I'm going to call it the Seattle Seahawks approach, but like Russell Wilson and the way he runs the offense today is different than the way he ran it when he came in as a rookie. The same with Ben Roethlisberger. The rookie Roethlisberger offense was not the same thing that he runs today. But if they're going to start Deshone Kizer right off the bat, they're going to have to simplify that offense massively so that he can get them in and out of sets, so that he can get people in the right places, because those complexities are the things that come after 8, 10, 12 weeks, if not 2 or 3 seasons in the league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. Like, yeah, I mean, Roethlisberger, Brady, both won Super Bowls early in their careers as more or less game managers, right? Like, just don't screw things up.
Handing the ball off to Jerome Bettis.
Yeah, and let the defense, carry the day, and just, don't turn the ball over. And, they were able to handle that early on. And, then as time goes on and they get more experience, they're able to open up the offense. And now those guys are two all-time great quarterbacks in this league. As much as we may hate that, it's unfortunately the truth. So yeah, I think, I don't know what's best for Kizer right now. I really don't. But I'm really hesitant to say like that. I want him to start game one, week one of his rookie year. I'm just not sure I'm there yet. I just have a lot of questions about the Browns' offense overall, and I don't know that throwing him into that right away is what's best for him. And I maybe I'm still dealing with like the Tim Couch situation, because I cannot be convinced that Tim Couch would not have been a good quarterback if he would have been able to not have to be thrown to the wolves right away after that first game, week 2, starting for that expansion Browns team. Like, I think Tim Couch really got damaged by having no offensive line and just being constantly under fire from defenses. I think it was terrible for him. It made him harder to trust, the timing and to let things develop. He got the happy feet a little bit. But I really think Tim Couch had a lot of tools to be a very good NFL quarterback. And I think he had some success in spite of the situation he was thrown in. And I still think he's arguably the best quarterback the Browns have had. So, if we want to hope that Kizer can have a future, I'm just worried about him being thrown into an offense without the weapons to have success.
Well, and here's another question. If Tim Couch had the same exact career starting today, how many times in his first couple seasons would he have been thrust into the concussion protocol?
Yeah, that's a really great point too. That's a very, very good point.
But it's just a different time and place. Did you read my Twitter feed this morning?
I did not. I haven't been on it all.
Okay,
today
good.
Yet.
This is perfect. Because part of what happens with these quarterbacks is that we say that they don't have any receivers, and we also say that they don't have any receivers because there's no good quarterback. It's this kind of vicious cycle that feeds itself. But I started digging in, and the Browns' top 25 all-time receivers, there are only 5 in the top 25 that started their career with the Browns after 1999. Do you think you can name the top 5 pass catchers, some are tight ends, some are wide receivers, since 1999?
Ooh, wow. Okay. Well, interesting. Okay.
We'll treat it like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So you talk me through your thoughts, and we'll see if we can come up with the top 5.
I'm thinking Kevin Johnson.
Perfect start. He's the first one, and surprisingly, now let's see if you can figure out where he ranks in the top 25.
The top 25 is all time. Okay.
Do you think he's in the top 10?
He's top 10. I do.
He's number 12.
Oh, okay. So
not a single player from 1999 on has cracked the top 10 in a very heavy passing era of NFL football.
Oh. All right.
So Kevin Johnson is number 12.
I'm trying to think of some guys who had some longevity too, like Dennis Northcutt.
Very good. You skipped one. He's number 15. There's somebody in between KJ and Dennis Northcutt.
Quincy Morgan?
No.
Okay. He's probably not in any of them, right?
He's not in the top 25.
Okay. Now I'm struggling already. This is tough. Did Kellen Winslow get enough?
Yep, he's number 24, and you need to look at somebody else that Eric Mangini ran out on a rail.
Braylon?
Braylon was number 13, right after Kevin Johnson.
Okay, I thought maybe he wasn't here long enough to get in there, but he did have a couple big years, so that certainly helps. So what are we at? We're at 4. I'm missing 1.
You're missing 1.
Okay.
Maybe you should smoke a blunt and think about it.
Josh Gordon, number
20.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that is it. 5 after 1999 cracked the top 25. And so just to really torture Cleveland Browns fans, I looked at the Steelers. The Steelers have 5 post-1999 receivers in their top 10.
Jesus. Wow.
Hines Ward's number 1. Antonio Brown is number 3 and rising, obviously. Heath Miller is number 4. Plaxico 9. Mike Wallace 10.
God. Wow.
It just goes to show, that it's astonishing how bad the Browns have been at finding receivers, almost as much so as it has been quarterbacks. Maybe it's their entire drafting history.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's a case of, well, if they had a good quarterback, maybe some of these other receivers would have had some success, or vice versa. I don't know, but that's.
And they've done okay on the offensive line. Maybe that's because they've had Joe Thomas.
Yeah, I think Joe Thomas certainly being able to just have that guy as the anchor on your line for so long has been such a luxury, and it's just such a shame they haven't been able to put more playmakers around him. But I mean, I do look at like how many times in the draft like I've wanted the Browns to get playmakers. Like it just seems like that's been a ongoing theme for so long. Like and then you find one in Josh Gordon, and then that happens, and it's just can't catch a break.
Yeah, and now we're finding out that the Browns probably are going to lean very heavily in the passing game on Duke Johnson this year, which isn't bad strategy, but it just goes to show how shallow that talent pool has been at the receiving position, because they've spent a lot of draft picks on receivers in the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. And if I can say, as a fan only, so I understand there was a lot more to what happened with Terrell Pryor, But as a fan of the team, it's really frustrating to see a guy who, by all accounts wanted to stay, but obviously he wanted to make his money and stay. But he was interested in signing, and to see him walk away when you have had such issues with it, with having the playmakers at wide receiver. And now you hear everybody talking about how great he's looked in Washington this summer. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating. As a fan. I certainly understand the issues and why the front office was hesitant to give him that deal. I can totally understand that if we're talking about it from a GM perspective, but speaking only as a fan, when the Browns have struggled so much to have good wide receivers and to, look like you have something blossoming in Pryor and to let it walk away, it's tough.
Well, and I'm not rooting for this, but would it shock you if Kenny Britt ended up being more like Dwayne Bowe?
Oh, not at all.
I know, and that's what tortures me.
Yeah, I know that people have said, well, Kenny Britt's basically the same thing as Terrell Pryor, but the optics of it aren't the same. It doesn't fit, in that same kind of scope or narrative or context, whatever you want to call it.
All right, well, I think that's the Browns update for now. Check into the next podcast. We're going to talk about Kyrie Irving, maybe for the last time. Probably not, but it feels like we always have to go there last. So stay tuned for that one. Thanks so much for listening. Go find us on iTunes. Give us a rating, hopefully a good one.